right, so I cannot tell you how excited. So my Fridays are gonna be about fangirl Fridays because
Love that.
I am the fan of so many women that are just doing amazing things in the world today. And today we get to share a little bit of the world with one of my favorite women from my favorite place, San Angelo, Texas, Julie Schniers. Julie, thank you so much for being a part of this today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I think it's so cool that you take care of lifting up other women. I think we got to do that for each other. And I'm honored that we get to chat today because I'm super excited to be a piece of your little puzzle. I'm pumped about
Well,
what
I
you're
feel
doing.
like
So
you
thanks.
give you give so much back, and I have just been a secret fan for years. So now
Thank you.
the word is out. It's not a secret anymore. I'm a fan, and
You're the best.
I think you are as beautiful inside as you are on the outside, and
Well,
you've
thank
proven
you.
that time and again. So I just want to share with the ladies or everybody that's watching. Julie has been an educator for how many years?
13. 13
13
years.
years.
Yeah.
And recently had a chance to flip your opportunity and your focus, and now you're teaching others to do the same and the importance of flipping your focus. So let's talk a little bit about that, how it all happened, and just
Yeah.
what you're doing now.
Okay, so how it happened is I'm in love with all things education.
Mm.
Coaching, I coach speech and debate at Central High School in San Angelo. So that's the 6A school there. Loved every second of it. Had some of the most incredible students come through that program. Had really neat faculty to get to work with and learn from. And all of those parts kind of just kept feeding into each other. And I guess a couple years ago, I had a couple students even point out, you're the one teacher that does this. Hey, this works because you do it like this. And those little pieces made me just kind of brainstorm. And then I had the opportunity to mentor a couple teachers in and out of the district. And I learned very quickly that not everybody sees things through the same lens that I do. So it made me ask some questions that about myself and about my strategies and about, what's different in my classroom. So in speech and debate world, there's about 15 different events, and it is all types. So, if I'm just like I think with one side of my brain, the other side is, missing some fires when we're looking at interp, which is acting, and then we're looking at speaking, and we're looking at debate. So to be a coach that's great at all of those events is just almost difficult to do. And I was really good at a lot of them, but not all of them. There were a couple of
Right.
debate things that I just struggled with, and I learned, and I was able to see and watch, even though I was more talented in one area than another, my students were still across the board seeing success. And it really became very obvious that it was because of the kind of motivator and organizer that I was, and the relationships I was building with my students brought them to a different level. And I had a teacher that I spoke with a couple of years ago, which is kind of one of my jumping off points. And he stood up in a room and he said, "My job is to teach history. Building relationships is not my job." And I'm like,
Ouch.
oh, I don't think, one, I totally respect this teacher. I just believe in my heart of hearts that he had lost focus. And it was kind of that moment that I realized he's not alone in seeing the perspective of, I have goals that I'm being asked to meet. And that's, of course, we've got STAR tests and we've got standards and we've got objectives and now we're dealing with COVID learning, right? Like we have all these things that we are having to check off of our to-do list every single day. So it's really hard for some of us to see that we need to focus first on relationship building. So in talking with some of my students, really and truly, some of my veteran students were the ones that were like, "What are you doing? You should be telling the world what you know and what you do." So here I am trying it out. My big heart piece is, like you said, we need to flip our focus because I'm a believer in, if you focus on what matters most first, the other pieces are going to fall in. That old, man, we just did it in church the other day. You get a bucket and you put the golf balls in the bottom and you put
Yes.
the little rocks on top. It's the same idea. If you try to put the little rocks, the golf balls are not all going to fit. And you
Right.
have to put the big things in first. And relationships with our students have got to be the number one big thing. I think probably what launched me into, I just absolutely, it's time that I stop being an educator in the classroom and be an educator to everyone that could possibly need me, was when I started researching the mental health issues in the United States and the broken home issues in the US. And studies will show that 1 in 12 of our students have contemplated seriously or attempted suicide. And 1 in 10
Mm.
have what you can call clinical depression, not, hey, I'm having a hard day, but they are clinically depressed or have been. 1 in 4 have anxiety. They say by college, 73% of our students have had one of the top 5 mental health issues, which are suicide, anxiety, addiction, eating disorder, depression. So that's a huge number. And then you start looking at broken homes, and those numbers are growing. That all of the studies that we compare 2010 to 2017, they doubled. You're looking at 15.73 million children live in a single mother home. 3.23 lived in a single father home as of 2019. So you're talking not like I'm not doing a good job because I'm a single mom, but more like I have one income, probably more than one kid. I'm busy, I'm struggling, and when that kid is depressed and they don't necessarily want to burden mom, or mom doesn't have time to see it, the likelihood of those kids needing somebody else is great. So when you're looking at mental health, broken homes, we are watching these things increase. It is true that educators are literally the front lines of this war zone. And
Absolutely.
beautiful piece that can help build relationships and at least see what's happening. So I get to talk about the power of relationship building and how, they're going to want to learn history from you later, and they're going to pay more attention when you teach them history if they know that you care.
Yeah,
So.
that saying that people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Mm-hmm.
Is
And it's
so
been said,
true.
right? Like, that is something we've all heard. I mean, in the education world especially, it's been said over and over again. So then the question still is, why are we feeling that it's still a challenge in places? And I got to speak with some really cool business owners and groups of people that go out into the workforce and work for themselves, and just small business kind of things. Man, the same is true everywhere. If we know that that's truth, it's obviously still something that we're struggling with just a little bit, because we're still talking about it. And we're
Right.
still
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like how true is that for, when you're talking about the single moms? Well, now these single moms are going into their place of business struggling with the same things that their kids are struggling with.
And it cross applies, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for
So
clients. If I'm trying to ream in a client, I'm more worried about the sell than I am about that client and their needs, and I don't know their needs because we haven't built a relationship, you're not going to have as good of a sale, as much of a long-term relationship for future sales as you could if you could focus on relationships first. So it's just a mind shift. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how do you do that? Do you have any tips, any tricks? I don't want you to give away your whole bag of goodies, because I know that it's amazing. But what's one takeaway that you feel like everybody needs to know about that flipping the focus and what that needs to be? Like, how do you start that?
I mean, starting it, I think you just have to jump in with both feet first and just try. This is actually, and I talk about it in my keynote, this is something that I've struggled with when I talk with people, because they're like, look, you're good at relationship building. I'm not good at it. You're always going to come across differently than I come across. And I know that we all have our own personalities and our own strengths, and that can be truth. But to say that we're not good at relationship building is something that we should definitely kick out of our heads, right? I might not be good at running, but I try. You still have to try. If it's something that is impactful or important, you're going to have to make it a priority, and your mind can learn anything. So in learning that some people just flat find it hard, I came up with a couple of tips and tricks after talking to, hey, why did this work? What is different? What do I do that's different from the other incredible people in your lives, the other incredible teachers in your lives? And I do have my little toolkit. I do these Motivation Mondays on my YouTube channel.
I love them.
Of
I have
course,
been
thank
watching
you.
them. I
They're
love
so
them.
fun to put
They
together.
are.
And I
Yeah.
post them on all of the social media, so you just have to dig for me, Julie Schniers, if you need an extra pick me up on a Monday. And I just shared one out this past week, and it's also one of my tools that I'm super passionate about. So as a teacher, I taught communication. Like, this was something that I loved. That communication is my jam. I believe in the power of good communicators. I believe in the power of good nonverbal communication. And then, of course, relationship building. And when you start digging through your list of nonverbal communicators, the number one nonverbal communicator that helps connect you is eye contact.
Yes.
So it's as simple as me saying, you have to take time to make eye contact. And studies show, right, like everything I'm about to say, you know in your head. You know that making eye contact means you're going to have a more impactful conversation. I can't tell you how many times my husband and I have been having a conversation at night, and he's on his phone going, yeah, I'm listening to you. And I'm like, okay, look, I don't feel important at all. If we're going to make a real conversation out of this deal, I'm going to need you to give me your eyes. And just partially because I'm a communications guru, but partially because I'm human, right? Like, we need that interaction. I'm going to feel more important if you stop what you're doing and you give me eye contact. And in the
I think we could stop right there for just a second. And that's for parents and your children.
True.
That's for a boss and your employees. That's for a sales guy in the field talking to his clients. I mean, that just applies across the board.
It does.
And hear that, and I'm like, yeah, I know that. I am so guilty of doing
me too.
that.
I'm saying it, and I still struggle. Literally this morning with my personal children in the kitchen, you know, because you're trying to, and I get it. We're doing a million things. I'm trying to cook dinner, and I've got to get some media pieces out before this interview. And, you know, like, I have all of these little things that are happening on my list, and my kid needs to have a conversation with me about their school clothes, which we're going to talk through tonight, and I'm going to iron later. Give me a moment, right? But to that kiddo in that moment, it was so important because he is so excited about school. And it's going to mean more when I'm asking him to be respectful to me, when I need him to be quiet in the background of my Zoom, when I can focus on him when he needs me to. And it's just hard. Girl, it's just hard. It's hard to put others first in that relationship building piece, but it pays off. And so it's something that I have to work at every day, but it's worth working at.
I agree 100%. And I like you, I totally get it, because I'm, you know, my husband and I call each other out when we're on our phones, and, you know, it's like we are on different schedules as far as, like, he'll want to talk when I'm busy and I want to talk when he's
That's
busy.
hard.
And so it's like you just have to remember what's important. And as you said, you know, relationships are the most important. And
it's the big golf ball.
It is it's like the huge boulder at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So I know that you came from this teaching background, and you have so much that you can give back to the educational world. And I you know, like I said, I've been watching you on Facebook, and but I've seen that you're now reaching out to these businesses. So what's I guess, like, tell me what does that look like? How can you help flip the focus in a business beyond just identifying this relationship piece?
Well, and I learned that, like the eye contact piece of my acronym, there are so many common sense tools that we don't use, or we don't know how to use, or tricks that you just need to be told, have you thought about it like this? Can we re-look through this lens? And everything that I learned in education, I know that that was the place that I functioned and the place that I grew from.
Yeah.
But I've been educating humans who are now in the workforce. So that workforce is seeing the same things that we're seeing in the classroom, especially when you're talking high school classroom. These kids are developing, they're about to walk out into the real world, they're just trying to figure themselves out. And how many of us are still just trying to figure ourselves out, right? It's
I think
still
everybody.
everybody. Well, we should be, because we should never stop learning. And I know the power of what I'm sharing in the idea of flipping your focus cross applies to pretty much every business that I can think of and every team that I can think of, because relationships matter. They matter in almost every situation. If you're dealing with people at all, if you're a team player at any point, if you're a leader at any point, and you haven't focused on relationships, you are not going to be as impactful as a team player, as a leader, as a businessman, if you haven't flipped that focus yet. So it really was something I started out thinking, I just want to do education. And I had businesses reach out to me and say, hey, wait a second, I want to buy what you're selling because that would help me, and I know I need that help. And then those pieces just kept falling, like, okay, this does work everywhere. Well, of course it does, because we're all human dealing with humans. And the basic needs of that boils down to, how do we communicate and what kind of relationship do we have built so that we can be as impactful to each other and for each other as possible?
I love that. I love it. So a lot of the women that are on my pages and following me are all either small business owners, or they're solopreneurs, or maybe they're moms at home. They're stay-at-home moms and they have a side gig. So what's some tips and tricks that we can pour into them? Or maybe how could they connect with you rather than being a part of a business scenario? What else, what could you offer them?
Well, I would love to say that my Motivation Monday could be something that I could offer. And if you go onto my website, you can find those pieces. I would love to break out and do some women in leadership stuff. I took a Notre Dame class, or I got the certificate in women in leadership from them. And that opened my eyes in a lot of new ways. And so now I'm kind of like you, I'm trying to go, how can I help other women step up their game? How can I cheer other women on? Because who has been most impactful to my heart lately is people like you, Karen, who have stepped up and said, hey, let me cheer you on. It's incredible, the women on these journeys that I found, and the people in small business, just like you're saying. So I would love to be able to make some sort of webinar or something, but that's way in the works and still, something that I'm working the kinks out of. But my Motivation Monday, I've got a little blog that's in the same place that you can find if you go to my website. Those pieces I would like to hope are helpful. And then just every day cheering on. I post a little tip every day, and then I'm watching the use, and, just our interaction and supporting each other is something that I hope that we can give back to each other. I know we talked a little bit about eye contact, but I mean, the power of eye contact and basic communication with your kids if you're a stay-at-home mom, with, your employers if you're the boss, with your peers if you are, working with a group of people, is really powerful. Another thing that I would say, that I'm just a huge advocate for, is basic conversation. One of the things that I share in my toolbox is asking and answering questions. And I love sharing this example because in the audience, every single time there's these head nodders in the back. Like, I have a friend and she's super nice. Like, so nice that everything's always great. And she's positive and she's peppy and she never has anything bad to say. And she's always kind. And I would never complain to her and share my real struggles with her, because she's always peachy. And if she's always peachy, I don't want to give my gross, right? If she doesn't know what gross is, why am I going to share my gross with her? If she's never shared her gross with me, I'm not going to share my gross with her, or my challenges, or my stresses, right?
Yeah, because maybe she can't relate.
because maybe she can't relate, or maybe I would be embarrassed to, right?
Oh yeah, right. What would she think?
Right. Like if you've never gone through anything bad, why would I give you my bad, my ugly, my nervousness, my stresses, my oh, I hope I'm good enough, right? If you don't share out your honest you're not going to get honesty back from other people.
Yeah.
That applies in the classroom, right? And that's something that I've had to fight with teachers. Like if you don't ask and answer questions to your students, they're not going to ask and answer questions of you. And I'm not saying share, all the bad parts and, things that we should definitely have our personal and professional life separate. I know that there's a balance and a line, but there's got to be a place that you're willing to say, hey, I want to share this about my day, or hey, I want to share this with you, so that people will feel like they have a street that they can drive on in communication with you. And that applies to your kids. That applies to your boss. That applies to your employee that sits next to you every single day. If you share out, which is also why in all my posts, I'm really honest. Like my blog that I put out this morning, I talked a little bit about running. I was running one morning and I've been trying to run and my treadmill caught on fire in my upstairs room, which meant that I'm no longer getting to run when it works for me. I'm running when the weather doesn't make me want to pass out, right? So I'm sharing on this blog and I'm writing kind of what helped me realize that I'd been stuck in I've got to be better mode, because I'm listening to these, I'm going to be better podcasts while I'm trying to be better running. And my time was awful and I was frustrated because I hated it. And then one morning I'm looking at my podcast and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to look at any of these. I don't want to listen to any of these because I know I'm not good enough there. I know I need to do that. I'm not ready to deal with that. Right. So I'm going down my
I'm laughing because I get it. I'm so there.
And I have so many self-help and get betters and here how to be happiers, and this should be fun, but it makes me just think I'm a bad mom podcasts on my list that I just closed it out and I put on Pandora and I put on 2015 road trip songs, and I ran the best time that I'd run in a long time. And on my blog, I was like, don't ask me what that time is because I'm not a real runner, okay? And I'm not a super good runner. That's not why my treadmill caught on fire. It's literally just because it's old and I try too hard. I'm not a good runner. I'm not gonna run long distances. I'm just trying to fit in my jeans, especially after COVID. That's the real story. And the real story is, it's embarrassing that I feel like I gotta go run the COVID weight off, but it's true. I hate that I'm struggling with self-help pieces, but it's me. And if I'm going to share that out, we're going to be able to have open conversations, because I'm willing. And I think you've got to be willing to ask and answer questions and just be real, whether it's with your students or your own children or the person that sits next to you at work. Communication 101, right? It's a two-way street. We forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah, my son is.
I love it. Aw.
You want to peek in? I'm doing a live video. No? Okay.
He's like, not now that you told me. Thanks, Mom, for pointing it out.
That's right. So, I don't know, can you see him? Oh, you can see him in the mirror.
He's hiding.
No, I think that's one of the things that drew me to you in the beginning is
that means a lot since I'm putting the gross out there.
Yeah, no, but you were transparent about the hard things. You were uplifting and encouraging for your students, and I love speaking. I coach on speaking as well for different things, for pageants, but as my journey has transitioned, my clients have transitioned as well, and I was always just drawn to you for many different reasons, but one of them was because you were always so uplifting and positive, but you were real. And I'm drawn to women that are authentic and transparent and supportive. And that's why it was so important for me to connect to you. I just felt drawn to you. Like, my listeners, my tribe needs to hear this message, because
you're the best. You're the best for saying those sweet things and bringing me in. I appreciate you so much.
So they're so true, because we all make assumptions, right? That people that they have the perfect life, then they have this and they have that, when we're all just trying to do the best with what we can.
Well, and you know what's really hard about that is just recently, Karen, and you know, when I started putting myself out there past just my world of education, and branching out and doing the speaking thing, I felt like the most vulnerable I've ever felt ever. And I did pageants back in the day. So there's a lot of vulnerability in getting in a two-piece swimsuit and walking on the stage. Like, I get vulnerability. But I really struggled with, okay, I'm going to do this thing that I think can be good. And I'm going to pray that it's good enough. And I'm going to pray that people don't think I'm stupid and crazy. And there are people, one in particular, there was one lady who said some really awful things because she thinks that it's stupid I'm trying to be a speaker. And she told me that. She was like, I don't think I'll ever need your help. Okay, that's fine. You know, you're going to encounter people who might be struggling on their own, and those pieces are going to fall. And so even when you're being authentic, there is this chance that people are going to see what you pray they don't see, or think what you pray they don't think. But the message, I think, is that you just have to keep powering through, or that's what I'm telling myself, because that brought me down, man. It's like, man, I expected people to be mean like someday, but not somebody that I knew, loved, and respected. I just did not even see it coming. So I'm learning to, you know, you just got to be true to you.
Yes.
You got to put your heart into what you're doing, and you got to not look back, and you got to not look at the people who are sitting beside you, you know, looking at you like you're crazy. You got to just stick with the group that's cheering you on, the Karens in the world that are going to be real with you and authentic in a sweet way. But man, doesn't that just happen? Like, it's just life. Authentic sometimes gets you a kick in the pants. That's not a good one.
Yeah, because when you almost like you're burying your soul, and making it very, very vulnerable and open to the critic. You have your inner critic that we all know is there, that voice that's telling you
so loud.
And then you have people that confirm what your inner voice is telling you, and that's when it's really the most painful. But I just have to, for me, I stay focused on my why. And if my why is bigger than the pain, I'm able to keep going. And so
That's beautiful.
Intentionally surrounding myself with people that support my why. And that's to just leave an impact, empower, encourage, support other women. And by that, I was like, okay, I need to walk that out. And that's why I started these Friday interviews and my Fangirl Fridays, because I want to support other women, give them a platform, give them their encouragement, and not just say that I'm doing it, but walk it out and do it. And so,
props to you. Yes.
Thank you. I just, I want to give back. And when I give back, I get so much in return. But yeah, you're right. Like, just being that vulnerable and putting yourself out there, you're just
sometimes going to hit.
You're just kind of waiting for the backlash. And it is very often the people that you know and trust that say things because they feel comfortable enough to say them. And it's the strangers that you end up helping and forming these crazy relationships with. But with the internet now, it's amazing. We can connect with people around the world. And I
mean, the good and the bad, they all exist in this beautiful World Wide Web. But you know, no matter, I'm with you on the find your why, stick to your why, and keep being your authentic self. And I think even with, you know, I talked about the communication piece of it, the ask and answer questions, and how important that is. It can even happen in those moments, right? Like, being authentic and being open and willing and vulnerable to ask and answer questions to build a relationship, that can still end up having backfire. But it links down to, is the backfire going to be more impactful, or is the relationships built going to be more impactful? And 9 times out of 10, just like you and I mean, the amount of naysayers and the amount of this is what we needed, how incredible, they're not going to balance. So we can't let those little bitty naysayers or those little bitty backfires, those little bitty worries about a backfire, worries that when I am vulnerable with you, when I am communicating with you, you might not like what I say, because it's going to not compare to what could be possible. So just focusing on what could be possible and being vulnerable, what could be possible and being authentic. What could be possible in building relationships through those asking and answering questions.
Love it.
Just more impactful. You got to see all the good. That's hard sometimes, but you got to.
Yeah, love it, love it.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions in our last,
Okay.
I think we're on the second half of our portion. So my first question is, who inspires you?
I feel like I'm in a pageant. We're having
Yes, this is interview portion now.
Yeah. I love it. You know, there are so many incredible people in my life that have inspired me. I always go back to some of my most impactful teachers. I don't know if it's because I've been in education for 13 years and prayed to be impactful enough that I would help children the way that those teachers had helped me. But I have one teacher that really and truly gave me a kick in the pants that I have to recall constantly. He was my debate coach. His name was David Schniers. And I've had lots. I mean, my theater teacher, Renee Casey, was incredible in Buchanan now. My trigonometry teacher, Miss Hill, like I had so many incredible people. But David Schniers, my debate coach, he saw me in ways I did not see me. And he said things to me in ways that no one ever had before. I was in high school, just to give you a little like backstory, which probably not we'll get to answering your question, but I was like 5'6", the end of my 5th grade year. I'm not a small person, you know, I'm like almost 5'9.5". And I struggled with being so tall so soon. You know, junior high is brutal, like literally the most brutal years of my life. God built me from the inside out, faux show. So I remember struggling in junior high. And when I started high school, trying to find your thing, like what activities are going to work for you? Who are your groups of friends? Because those kind of change sometimes as you're starting new sports and, you know, starting new clubs and groups in high school that didn't exist in junior high. So you're in this like huge learning curve place. And my confidence really sucked. Like I just did not feel confident about anything I did. I wasn't confident in myself, in the way that I looked because I was so tall, in the way that I was able to do things because there were teams that I didn't make when I started trying things out in high school. And I just struggled. But I remember him in speech and debate pushing me in the most incredible way. And he would be the very first person to say, "You're incredible, so stop that," you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, he thinks that. And he was so brutally honest, which is really how I coached. He was so brutally honest that I thought, he must be serious. And if he's serious, then why am I not seeing that, right? And so it made me at least step up my game when I had to. And then he would always say, "Look, if you don't know what you're doing, you better act like you do because you're not going to embarrass us." And I'm like, and it sounds so brutal, but those moments were what made me go, okay, he believes in me enough to bring me on this trip, to let me compete. He's told me that I'm good. And now he's saying, if I'm going to fall apart, I better at least pretend that I'm not. So those pieces kind of just helped me fight through my confidence in the strangest way. And so when I'm thinking through who has really inspired me, he's this voice in my head that says, when I'm falling apart, suck it up because you are good enough. And you need to stop telling yourself that you're not, because that's just how he was with me. And there are so many beautiful people in my life that were like, "You're so great, it's gonna be fine." But that didn't work for me. And this person who was in my face saying, you are more beautiful and talented than you know. So act the part.
I love that.
It really helped me. So he inspires me. He passed away.
Oh,
I know he passed away a few years ago. But man, he really was just a great kick in the pants.
awesome. We all need that one person or multiple people.
Yeah.
So my next question is, who are you following on social media now? Like,
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question because I've become this like social media junkie. I wasn't on anything but Facebook in my personal life until all of this started rolling, right? And so now I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, and I had to learn all the, I'm still learning. There's so much. And I've had teams say, oh, well, we look at Instagram, and schools say, hey, we're on Twitter. And then businesses are like, oh, are you on LinkedIn? So I knew I had to come up with all the platforms. So I'm on all of these platforms just digging for who do I align with, and people who follow me that I find me that, oh, well, I like what you're doing too. I follow a lot of education people. I follow a lot of leadership people. There are so many. My favorites, just to throw it out there, they're just not traditional. I mean, they're traditional. They're not spunky and new. Brene Brown.
Love her.
God, she's incredible. Everything shame and vulnerability like speaks straight to my heart. Which, as vulnerable as I've been with all of you today, you probably are like, yeah, of course she's Brene Brown material. And then Mel Robbins, I love her. She did the 5-second method. She's just she's kind of like David Temez, man. She's a kick in the pants and, stop sucking at this and just do it. And I just love that because I think I speak to that personality, just the bold, blunt, real.
Yeah. I love this 5-second rule, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just do it. Just do it.
I don't always just do it, but it's beautiful. Like literally this morning when I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up and run. I don't know. It definitely took me longer than 5 seconds.
Yeah. So she, I listened to her audiobook when I was traveling, and it's her little message of that's how she got out of bed every day instead of just laying there hitting snooze.
Yes.
That is like Mel Robbins is in my head every morning when I wake up and want to hit the alarm again. It's like, no, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just get up.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mel Robbins. If you ever hear this, changed my morning routine.
Yeah, we love you both. Brene Brown and Mel Robbins.
Yes.
All things wonderful.
All things wonderful. Highly, highly recommend both of those ladies.
What about you? Who do you follow on social media? I know that but I'm just so interested in this conversation.
Yeah. So I follow both of those. I follow Lisa Nichols. I think Lisa Nichols is amazing. And Simon Sinek. I think.
Oh, and you know who else? Amy Weatherly. You followed her?
I haven't. I'm gonna have to check that one out. Amy Weatherly.
Christian, but she's good and she's got real stuff too.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna write yours down. I'm gonna go find them.
Yeah, Lisa Nichols.
Yeah.
She is part of the Mind Valley, but she's amazing. Okay, so and then I have some business ladies that I follow too. So Jenna Kuchar, love her. Yeah. So
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is your favorite resource that you're using right now? So I know you're on all of these different things. So for your business, for these ladies that are out there in business, like what is your favorite resource that's really saving you or that you're loving right now?
Man, that is a very hard question because I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what works best for me. I recently got myself together in MailChimp world, so I'm like behind on that train. I know, and I'm loving that. That's been helpful. And then I'm just gonna go traditional. I am an old-fashioned. Get your paper and pen out and your planner and write out your plan. I'm currently creating a planner that links to relationship building. So that's kind of a fun venture because I'm such a planner advocate, but I love the idea. Do what?
I said, ooh, I love it. I want to be your first guinea pig. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. When I get it rolling, you can be my test plot. That'll be good.
Yes,
because I had a couple of business women that were like, okay, I know I need to focus on this with my crew, but I need something to drive me to that every day. And I started looking, I'm like, there's not a planner, because I'm a planner girl. I'm like, oh, let's get a planner for it. You know, there's not a planner. There's not a planner to just help you focus on relationship building the way that I talk about focusing on it. And so I'm going to create that, and we'll see how it goes. I'm not done with it yet. I'm in the works of design, but we'll get there. But I'm traditional on, I want to put it in my hand. I want to write it down. You know, those pieces are really important to me, to be able to see it, hold it in my hands, and kind of, you know, make sure that I'm doing what I should be doing with the goals that I've aligned for myself and set for myself in my planner.
Mm-hmm. So what type of learner are you?
My kid is walking in now.
Hey!
Oh, hands-on all the way. Like
hands-on. So does that make you a kinesthetic learner? Is that it?
Yes. I need to hold it in my hands, and do it. Even my husband will, you know, when I'm trying to deal with technology, I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, let me show you. Let me just do it. No, I want to hold it in my hands. I want you to walk me through it, because if I don't do it myself, I'm not going to process it. That's the kind of learner that I am. I really want to not just see it and hear it, but touch it and have some sort of interaction with it. And a lot of my relationship building tools link to that, because you'd be surprised how many people need something to hold on to. And really, in a world like today, when we are so text and email, online savvy, there's a beautiful gift in having something to hold in your hands. And there's a beautiful gift in being able to—
Tell Joe to get off. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I thought it was on mute. My sons everybody's homeschooling here, and when they're not in school, now they're on videos and games, and I think it's slowing down our webinar, our video. So I'm like, I thought I had muted. I'm so sorry, people. Sorry. No. I'm yelling at my husband who's walking up the steps too.
I mean, isn't that just like true story for all of us right now? Has been. I mean, since March. We start school tomorrow, and if we do not get to stay in school for a little while, you're going to find me in the corner crying, because working at home and being, you know, janitor, cafeteria worker, counselor, principal, both teaching kinder and third and high school you know, that was too much. And I can't. Yeah. I'm not that talented. Power to the homeschool moms. Power to the stay-at-home moms. To those of you having to actually work virtually, I'm just like, can I get in my office any sooner? Yeah.
I am with you. I think so many of us are right there, and having these conversations daily. I see it, you know, on the women's groups that I'm on, you know. Cracks me up. I saw on the first day here, because it was all virtual, everybody was getting kicked off, couldn't get logged in. It was 9. We started at 9. At 9:30, they were like, is it too early to start day drinking?
Yeah, no, preach. I mean, I did that during March and April so many times. Be like, what time is it? Oh my God, it's 1. And I had a friend say, she said, we don't call that day drinking. We call that mimosa time. It's like, oh. If I drink a mimosa every day, though, how much COVID weight are we going to have to run off? Let's be very real about that. Because I am, again, not a great runner. I know it's in the nutrition for everybody who's going to be like, make sure you're eating good. I am trying. I know. But day drinking is real.
Ladies, we are all right there together, and just holding hands to get through this. So my final question is, what book are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh. You're going to just, Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. That is what I am reading right now. I mean, I thought I was Brene. And you know what I'm so bad about this during COVID? I bought every book that came across my feed that I thought could grow me or is interesting, or just like a good read. I love making time to read. I have not been making time to read. It's COVID world. Like, you would think I had all these books read, but it turns out when you are a full-time mom and your husband is a farmer, so that means you're kind of a single mom, and you know, you're teaching and all the parts. Like, I just didn't have time to read. So I've bought this huge list of books. One book though that I also loved was Story Brand. If you haven't read Story Brand and you're trying to market yourself, that is a game changer. You definitely need to do that. I'm still working through pieces of that. But everything that he puts out is incredible. He's one that I followed.
Who wrote that?
Donald Miller.
Donald Miller, yes.
But Story Brand is something that I love, and
Mm-hmm.
I am still reading on that one too. So those are the two that I'm reading and working through. And then I have this huge list of to-do reads that I haven't read yet.
Yes, I
Matter of
was
fact, I
looking
had
up.
someone send me one this morning that I was like, oh, that's good. And I bought it this morning while I have how many people, sitting, or how many books sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, so I have
What about you?
I quit buying books and I just listen to podcasts now. Or not podcasts, Audible books.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
my
Okay.
yeah, so my book that I'm reading right now is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I just started it, and I love
So I need
podcasts.
to
I
put
love
that on I'll put that on my list for.
yes, because why is at the center of what motivates us,
Yes.
and once we
Yes.
can really strongly identify that, then we're able to get over those challenges. And he's amazing at communicating it. I think everybody would love that. So
Yeah, and
we've
need that. And I think that applies, finding your why and remembering your why, that applies to every piece of our lives. I mean, it applies to momming, right?
yes,
And how many moments that if I could just take a break and breathe through, it's okay that your room's not clean, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
my why is that your heart and your head are taken care of, right? Because that's my real goal as a mom. That's the real why that we have. Yeah, it
absolutely.
applies. I need to dig into that everywhere.
I love that. I love it. So we've got a few minutes left. What is something that you want people to know and remember about you?
Mm. That even if we never get to actually work together one-on-one or with a team, if I never get to be in a room with you, please think through the power of relationship building and make it a priority in your life with whoever it is that's in your path. Because flipping our focus to what matters most is going to pay off in ways that could change your whole corner of the world. And if we changed your corner of the world and I changed my corner of the world, what could pieces of our world look like and function differently because we cared most about the big boulder, right, in the bottom
Yeah.
of that jar instead of the little pieces. And that's the tie that really binds, no matter who I'm speaking to. We all have little pieces that we let take up our focus when our focus needs to be the big boulder, and linking to relationship building and why your heart is where it is and why your heart should focus on that person in front of you instead of the task that you see through that person or the task that you feel you're supposed to accomplish with this person, is going to make you a more impactful, memorable, helpful to the whole wide world person. And I love
Yes.
that being our goal. It's my goal. I'm still working through it every day. And I think that's what makes us all great, is that we're never all going to be professionals at this piece, but it's that we choose every single day to work through it, work towards it, and flip our focus. Yeah.
Yes. This is why I love you. This is it.
Well,
So,
man, I love you. And I am so thankful that we have you and that you've got this group of women to kind of link into and that we can support each other on these Fan Fridays. So thank you so much for taking time
thank
to
you.
visit
So,
with me. It was
thank you
fun.
for taking time to visit with me. And where can people find you? So,
Okay.
give us your social
Yes.
handles, your website, and I'll put it
Yes.
in the
Okay.
comments, of course. But
Yeah.
where can they find you?
Yeah, julieschniers.com is my website. And I'm still trying to make changes to that because I know there's pieces of it that need to be fixed. But in that, it talks about my keynoting, it talks about my consulting. I love doing workshops. I mean, the teacher in me will never go away. So being able to facilitate workshops or group teamwork stuff is good. And then I've got a little Motivate place. And if you click on the Motivate tab, it links to my Motivation Monday videos. It links to my blog. On the bottom, in the motivation, there's so many places that I'm on Facebook, and you can click on those if you go to julieschniers.com. But I'm, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on all those things, just Julie Schniers, like the basics of it.
Yeah.
So,
And that's SCHNIERS, right?
That's right. Yeah. The spelling of
Yes.
it is so fun. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I just want to thank you for sharing, for being vulnerable with us today, and just being your beautiful self. My movement is called Be a Rock Mover, and it's just talking about moving the rocks out of your bag and helping other women pull the rocks out of their bag, that heavy weight that we just carry around from our past. And, you know, I love that we could take those rocks out and choose this bucket that we're going to lay down and just put in the big rocks first.
Yeah.
So it kind of all goes together, but that's what our podcast is called, is Rock Movers.
Rocks. Our rocks really do complement each other. So I'm glad that we could work through those pieces together, because they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Julie. I know everybody's going to love this, and we'll make sure that your connections and how they can find you on social media and Facebook and Instagram are all in this. But
thanks for chatting, and thanks for watching, and all the good stuff. I hope your week is beautiful.
And you guys have a wonderful weekend, because this is going to be on Friday. And don't forget to flip your focus.